Welcome back to ZONEofTECH News, episode number 5 this time. So this week was crazy full. So many things have happened, and you can probably tell that by the number of videos that we've made. And next week is even crazier, as you probably know. Anyways, in this episode, we're only going to cover 4 topics, and that is the PS5 Teardown, the PS5 Hands On, Nintendo World, and Amazon Palm. That's a really interesting one. So get our snacks ready, sit back, relax, and here's everything interesting that happened this week that we haven't actually covered in any of the previous videos. So yeah, enjoy. Starting off with the PS5, Sony has posted a teardown video of the PS5 console. Now, they've also done something similar with the PS4 Pro and the PS4, so this is essentially just continuing the tradition, so to say. Now, I've watched the full video, and I found 13 actually, very interesting things from the teardown, so here's what I found. So first of all, as you can probably tell, the console is massive, but it looks to be even bigger than we thought. Like, this thing is gigantic. So if you don't have a lot of room on your TV stand, even if you plan on mounting this vertically, it's going to take up a lot of space. So I would suggest putting it on the floor, or hopefully, if you have a massive TV stand, just laying it next to the TV horizontally. Then number 2, the stand is actually removable, and it also comes in the box, whereas with the PS4 Pro and the PS4, you have to buy a separate stand, and it didn't come included in the box. And apparently you can just unscrew it, and then you can put the screw in a special slot inside the stand itself, which is really cool. You can keep it safe that way. And you can also mount the stand vertically as well, so you can choose the position and the orientation of your PlayStation console and mount that stand accordingly. So it uses a screw to mount it on the bottom if you want to use your PS5 in vertical mode, or if you want to use it horizontally, you can actually use one of those clasps and attach it to the console that way. Then number 3, apparently the back plates, so the white bits of the console, they're actually removable, which is really awesome. So this means that when Sony, usually with the PS4 Pro and the PS4, they release special editions of the consoles. But I mean, if you already have a PS4, you know, you obviously wouldn't buy another PS4 just to have that limited edition. But now, they could just release those backplates, or even sell those separately for like £20 or $20 or something, and that would be awesome. You could just customize your PlayStation that way. And maybe, just maybe, we'll also start seeing third-party manufacturers adopting those backplates. Now, one of the main issues with consoles today, or up until now, has been dust. Obviously, consoles are essentially PCs, or computers, and they have a fan and very powerful components, and they will gather dust. And the thing is, with a PC, you can just open it up, clean it up, and so on. But with a console, especially since you will be using it for like 7 years, like most people have consoles for 6 or 7 years, they will gather a lot of dust. Now, the PlayStation 5 seems to be the very first console that found a solution to this. So apparently, once you open up those backplates, once you remove those, you will see these vents, and these are essentially a dust catcher. So the dust will actually accumulate in those vents, and then you can use a vacuum to vacuum the dust out. So you're probably wondering, how often will you have to do that? And also, why? Well, to answer the why, if there's a lot of dust that gets in there, it will block the cooling, and over time, your console will actually run slower because it will be hotter and it will have to bring the clocks down. So that's what will happen. And don't worry, you won't have to, vacuum it like every day or anything like that. I think if you vacuum it like once a year, or even once every year and a half, I think that's fine. Now, unfortunately, on the PS5, we only have 825 gigabytes of storage, which is not a lot, and that's the only console variant that you can buy. There's no 2TB model or anything like that. But luckily, there is an M.2 slot inside the console, which is fairly easily accessible. You just remove the back plate and then remove another plate, and there you go, that's the M.2 slot. And unlike Microsoft, where you have to buy a specific storage module, which is quite expensive, it's $200, you can actually buy any M.2 PCIe 4 SSD, and you can just insert that module in there. So it's up to you which one you buy. However, it needs to have at least the speed of the internal drive, which is 5.5 gigabytes per second, so you need a very, very fast module. Oh, and in case you're wondering, you will not lose your warranty up until this step. So you can open up your PS5 by removing those back plates, you can vacuum it, and you can also install an M.2 slot, and you would not lose your warranty up until this step. Now, once you remove the warranty stickers, that's where you'll actually get access to the screws, and once you unscrew those, you'll get access to the actual inside components of the console. And the first component that you'll see is probably the fan, which by the way is gigantic. Like, look at this fan. This thing is nuts. That's like a desktop class PC fan, like one of those really, really high-end ones. Yeah, it's pretty nuts that we have this in a console. Speaking of massive, take a look at how gigantic and how much space the Blu-ray drive actually takes. Yeah, this is why we have that bulge on the regular PS5 and why we don't have it on the PS5 digital edition, which by the way looks much, much better. Now you can probably tell that this Blu-ray module is even more massive than it should be. And that's because Sony has actually isolated this Blu-ray drive inside another module just to protect the drive from any vibration and also prevent any noise escaping that module, so to say. Yeah, so pretty big fan, pretty big Blu-ray drive, but both of these basically eclipse the gigantic heatsink. Like, take a look at this thing. This is bigger than in a desktop class GPU, and it's one of the biggest heatsinks I've ever seen. This is nuts. In case you don't know what this is, this really sits pretty much underneath the processor, the CPU, and it basically absorbs all the heat from the CPU, and then obviously the cooling will cool the heatsink down, which in turn will cool the CPU. But wait, Daniel, Microsoft has an actual vapor chamber on the Xbox Series X. And that's true. Now, according to Sony, their traditional fan and the heat pipe, it works as well as the vapor chamber, according to Sony. We'll have to wait and see, but judging by the size of it, that could be possible. Then number 11, I was not expecting to see this, and I don't think anyone else was either. So Sony is using liquid metal as the thermal conductive on the CPU. So this is essentially the thermal paste, so to say, even though it's not an actual paste. They're using liquid metal, which is really, really expensive, by the way. This is like the highest end thermal conductive compound that you can find. And it's also very risky to use. The reason why it's so risky to use is because it's liquid, you know, judging by its name. And if a single drop of this actually goes onto the motherboard, it will short circuit the whole motherboard, which is obviously not good. So because of this, Sony has added a padded area surrounding the CPU and the liquid metal paste. Well, again, it's not actually a paste, but there we go. This should protect all of that liquid metal, or it should stop it from going outside its protective cage, so to say. Yeah, I'm quite curious to see how this goes. It is very risky. Now, the thing is, liquid metal has never been used on such a large scale before. So this is kind of like an experiment. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, well, this will result in a lot of broken PS5 units and a lot of complaints. I think and I hope that it will work. Now, because of that gigantic heatsink, because of that massive fan, and because of the liquid metal, this should be the best cooled console on the market. And even according to Sony, they said that this is extremely, extremely well cooled. And they also said that this is a perfectly quiet console, it barely makes any noise. So that's a really, really good thing, because the PS4 Pro was basically like a jet engine. That thing was crazy loud. And then finally, Sony has also revealed the power supply, which interesting enough is just a 350 watt power supply, which is actually not a lot. So high-end PCs usually have around 800 watts or even more. So again, 350 is not a lot. Now, aside from this, we also got some hands-on videos of the PS5, thanks to a few Japanese YouTubers that actually got access to the actual PS5 and the controller and some games as well. So we've seen 3 games, 2 of which were Astro's Playroom and also Godfall. Astro's Playroom was really cool. That was my favorite. That's because you can actually play inside the PS5. So you have these environments which essentially illustrate different components of the PS5. There's the cooling resort, the CPU resort, and stuff like that. So really cool. And then you can also see all the previous generations of the PlayStation inside the game. So it's really fun. It's like the history of the PlayStation in a game. Really cool. And this game was also when YouTubers finally got to test the controller, the DualSense, and test out that new haptic engine. Now, all of these videos were in Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, and unfortunately the captions were pretty bad. So anyway, from their reactions at least, I can tell that it was really good. They sounded impressed and super excited. So the haptic engine should be pretty impressive on that controller. Then Godfall looked okay. I still think it looks like a current gen game, just at 60 frames per second, and hopefully I think it's 4K, native 4K. But other than that, I don't know, just the graphics in general and the effects were average. I don't think they were that great. However, the loading times were pretty much instant, and other than that, it still looked pretty good, and the movement was really fluid. So it was a pretty decent experience considering that this is one of the very first games to launch on the PS5. Now, speaking of games, let's talk about save games. So you would expect that on the PS5 you could just load up any PS4 game and just continue from where you left off. Well, unfortunately, even though this will be the case with some games, it will not be the case with every single game. For example, if you get the Spider-Man remastered version of the game, you won't be able to continue where you left off in the PS4 version of Spider-Man, even though these games are basically identical aside from a few changes in terms of lighting and Peter's face model, which has completely changed. Now, every single week in ZONEofTECH News, we do a giveaway. So last week we gave away the Logitech Anywhere MX3 mouse, and here is the winner. So congratulations, you've been contacted. And this week we're giving away something else, and that is this. So these are the Transmart Apollo Bold headphones. They're truly wireless, they have active noise cancellation, and the reviews of these are pretty good. You also get 30 hours of playtime, you get a Qualcomm QCC 5124 processor, which apparently is fairly high-end for such a pair of headphones. We haven't really opened these, so this is a fully sealed package. And if you want to win these, simply be a subscriber of the channel, follow on Twitter at ZoneofTech, and then leave a comment in this video saying why do you want to win, and also make sure you leave your Twitter handle in the comment down below as well. The winner will be announced next week in, next week's episode of ZoneofTECH News. Right, next topic. This is really interesting. So Nintendo is actually launching Nintendo World, which is not a game, but an actual theme park, very similar to Disneyland. So yeah, the Nintendo equivalent to Disneyland. It's literally a full theme park. It will be at Universal Studios in Japan, and it will even have a real-life Mario Kart. How cool is that? There's going to be restaurants and shops from where you can buy Mario-related items and Nintendo-related items, juices, food, pretty much anything. So it's really cool. And even the sculptures and the seats inside of those would be from the Mushroom Kingdom. So yeah, it's really interesting. I would actually love to visit that place. This is how the construction site looks like. And it's a pretty small area, by the way. It's much smaller than Disneyland. I would say that this is probably the same size as a district from Disneyland, like a small one, but I still think it's really cool. It will apparently open in spring 2021. This was scheduled for 2020, but obviously got delayed because of COVID, so hopefully it opens in 2021, but regardless, I think it's a really cool thing. And then finally, we have Amazon One, which no, this is not like a subscription service like Google One or Apple One. This is something completely different. It's a palm read technology. It's like a fingerprint reader, but for your entire palm, and it works from a greater distance than NFC. But why? This is so strange. Why? Well, first of all, it's fully hygienic, right? Which is quite important now in today's stage. It works by reading the unique pattern of your blood vessels and ridges in your palm all at the same time. And apparently it's more secure than a fingerprint reader and even Face ID. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Apparently it will be first used in Amazon's Go stores, eventually in stadiums, public events, and other stores as well. So Amazon is launching this in their stores initially and then bringing it to the masses. But yeah, this has been everything for this episode. Definitely subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when another episode of ZONEofTECH News comes out. And other than that, thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments which was your favorite topic from this week's episode. And yeah, thank you for watching. Next week is going to be pretty nuts, Apple event, so pretty excited for that. So thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.